There's no recovery.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Lincoln Way Community High School District 210, Thursday, January 18th, 2024 Board of Education regular meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge if you're able. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Here.
Catherine Johnson,
Here.
Joseph Kostek,
Here.
Richard Lassine,
Present.
Caitlin Olanek,
Here.
Deidre Stokes,
Here.
Aaron Janik.
Here. All right, we have one person signed up for public comment, Jeff Santucci.
Hi, everyone. First thing I would like to say, I didn't realize how formal this was, so I apologize. I'll do better. I'm really here to introduce myself a little bit, but I'm hoping for a little bit of your guys' blessing. I was one of the first four-year graduating class at Lincoln Way North, and nothing sucks more than having to see it still closed. So I've developed a plan to reopen it as a private boarding school for at-risk youth. And it's very long and convoluted, and I understand that. It's insane to think that I could pull it off, but I turned 30 in December and I have no idea what else to do. So this is what I'm pouring myself into. I've had this idea for a while. The first move is obviously going to be to renovate the property to house people as a boarding school. The second, though, is to finish working up a psych profile, a model of what students in Chicago public schools tend toward antisocial behaviors like gangs and drugs and violence, and then apply that model to fifth graders. Take 1,000 of them a year from the worst neighborhoods in Chicago and let them stay with us through high school if they choose. That way, we remove them from the environments that negatively impact them while also giving them an education that would be worth having. The final step of this is the last piece to the puzzle. I want to go to private schools across the country. In the first 4 years that it's open, there won't be any upperclassmen, and I want to offer those private schools, best and brightest, the opportunity to come finish school, obviously, but act as big brothers and big sisters so that these kids can establish a network that they otherwise never would have been able to pull from. That way, we have a three-pronged attack that almost can't fail. The secondary and tertiary impacts to the communities that these kids came from will be their own, but it's a 16-year intake, 24-year plan, and I have a scheme not so much to change how education is done, but to change how we educate people. And that sounds ridiculous. It's better when I can break it down, but I can't. I don't know if you can tell. I'm nervous. If anyone has any questions, I have thought this out. It's laid out multi-part plan, but this is the first time I've told a group of people about it. Yeah, I guess that's it. What do I do now?
So next steps, Jeff, would probably be to reach out to either myself or my assistant, Mrs. Davis, and set up a time to meet with me.
Awesome.
Because anything that would go to the board would come through my office, so we could talk about some of the logistics and some of your thoughts would be. I could help with some of the thought and formatting, but obviously we would want to go through high level, think about pricing, think about costing, those types of things, and I have that information in terms of what it costs just to have 1,000 people there all the time, right? So I'd be happy to sit down with you, but you can contact either myself or Mrs. Davis, give us a phone call tomorrow and set up a time for you to come in.
Wonderful. Thank
Okay.
you. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have the curriculum instruction and assessment update.
evening. Tonight, I have some updates for you and a little bit more explanation of what we do to place our students into courses for the next school year. It's that time of the year where our current students are going through the course selection process, and within the next month, all of our incoming freshmen will also go through that process. So a little bit of an update first in talking about the Accelerated Placement Act. Last fall, I presented to the board the new legislation that was to go in effect for this school year. ISBE did push it back to a school year, so to be implemented at the start of next school year, which would impact our course placements this year. But some changes have come through that. We went last year and said, since we already had everything set up, we placed the incoming class of 2027, our current freshmen. We used this process last year. We utilized the PSAT 8 scores to place students into their freshman level courses to automatically enroll them. With the PSAT 8, we use the College Board benchmarks. The Accelerated Placement Act essentially tells us that if students are performing at grade level, if they meet the standard on their most previous test, that they are to be automatically enrolled in the next most rigorous level of coursework. This year, we will be utilizing this process for all of our students because that is what the state will be requiring for next school year. This year, there have been some changes with this, and we've had to do some updating to what we had implemented last year. First and foremost, the largest change with this was when College Board switched to the digital PSAT as opposed to the pencil and paper PSATs. The digital PSAT reported scores are different. If you take a look up there, this is what we had used last year. You can see that we had placed students and identified benchmarks in the overall math score, and then we used subscores and the College Board corresponding benchmarks for the reading, writing and language, science, and social science. The large difference is with the digital PSAT, they only report 2 scores. They only report math and reading and writing. So this really impacted when we looked at what would this do to our incoming numbers. So we've adapted this just a little bit to, as we roll it out to our upperclassmen and our current students, as well as the incoming students. In general, the course selection process started, depending on the school, right when we got back from winter break. Some schools started this week as well. Students are notified of their recommended courses as well as their automatic course enrollments in January or February. It's going to look a little different at each school. Essentially, students here at Central were getting a copy of their recommended courses from their current teachers. This happened prior to winter break. Our teachers in the classroom with their students who have seen their students, not only their work habits, but also their performance, recommended courses and had conversations with the students. These courses should not be a surprise. This year, what is also listed are what we are calling the alternate courses. That's what Skyward allows us to call them. As you can see in the top 2 bullet points here, the alternate classes would be the automatic enrollments. Those are courses that students can take, that they have qualified for under automatic enrollment. We have found that most students go by their teacher's recommendation. This is why we set up the process this way. However, we felt that it was our duty to make sure that the students, and having this on a piece of paper that hopefully they will bring home and share with their parents, that they can see that there are these other options that they definitely may enroll in. Students then will have a few weeks to talk to their teachers, talk to their parents, decide what electives they might want to take next year, and then they will have an individual meeting with one of our school counselors where they will confirm what courses they want. The way we're going to document everything for the Accelerated Placement Act and ISB is during the online registration process where parents go in each school year, pay their fees, and give us all their information. They will get to see what the students' final courses are, and they will click buttons that say, I approve of these, and they will note if it's opting out of accelerated placement. For our incoming freshmen, Students will be notified of their PSAT 8 scores, which, again, I want to give a huge shout out to our feeder schools for being so wonderful in administering those tests at their schools this fall. They will get a letter, probably the first week of February. The PPS departments will go to each of the junior highs and give each student an individualized folder. The one individualized thing in it is this letter. You will see that they get both their PSAT scores and recommended freshman year courses. What is different this year is these recommended courses are not the automatic enrollment courses. They're what we recommend based upon performance and data that we have tracked throughout the years from our teachers. Parents will, on the back side of that sheet, also get this information that gives them more details about our recommended score ranges and the waiver process if they choose to enroll in a different class. This year, we're giving them lots of information, and this is the key to getting the students in the classes where they're going to find the most success without experiencing too much stress or anxiety or being overwhelmed by their transition to high school. You'll see here we have recommended score ranges. We also have the ISBE state placement levels that the state says is where the students can be. And then we also provided comparison data for the parents to see what the average score is of a student, a current freshman at Lincoln Way, what they scored when they were in 8th grade, what the average score of that student is in that class. In algebra, you can see we were already at that state benchmark level, the College Board benchmark level, but you will notice in our other courses, there's a great difference between what the state says the students will be able to do and what we have seen. We want parents to be informed, so we're putting all of this out there. Dr. Murphy has worked very hard to help me get these recommended score ranges and the comparison data. We've talked with the directors of curriculum from our feeder schools, going through all of this data. The key is truly figuring out what is best for the child and to find a balance in what they prepare for and what they choose when they come into high school. At the freshman open houses on February 14th, they will finalize their courses, hopefully. We do give them a little extra time after that if they want to think about it further. Most of our parents and students, when they come to us, they trust us, and they will go with our recommendations. Others might want to do that waiver. If they want to do a waiver, we do ask that night that they stop by the department tables and talk and see what is in each particular course, the difference between the levels, the honors and the college prep level. And then if they want to, they can choose to waive either up into honors or from honors into our college prep class. The waiver goes both ways. We want parents to be very sure that they're getting the appropriate schedule for their student. There's also that acceleration factor. If students want to skip a grade level in a particular subject, that is something different. It's called an acceleration contract, and they can do that again on the open house night by talking to the department tables. March 1st is our solid deadline this year on this, and then once again, freshman parents will be able to confirm all of those courses when they complete the online registration process. Yesterday, most incoming freshman families should have received, well, all of them should have received a presentation that Dr. Tingley, Dr. Murphy, and myself put together. It goes through, there's some videos, there's some also solid information written down that they can see that outlines this process to get parents of our incoming students starting to think about this process and about the idea of balance when they prepare their student for the transition to high school.
All right. Any questions for Catherine? No?
She asked them earlier.
Yeah, I know
already
she was
got her.
talking to you, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's a lot of information. You know,
No.
I had one, just real quick. So if I'm reading this correctly, English 1 honors, reading and writing, the state for placement suggests a score of 390 to 720. But Lincoln Way, we're saying you probably need to be at the 470 to 720 range?
Yes,
And is that because we just have a more rigorous program here, or,
yes.
yeah? Okay.
Yes, I think the interesting thing is the state tells us that we can use the PSAT to determine this. If we weren't using the PSAT 8, which again, we pay for our feeders and they give, we would be using their 7th grade IAR scores. And that just seems so far away. By using the College Board suite of assessments, College Board has their benchmarks. By the time we get to junior year and we actually measure for how many of our students meet standards, that number for College Board is a 480. For the state of Illinois, it's a 540. I don't know why the state has always done that, but particularly in the area where we're looking at the ELA. So you see this in the English as well as the reading. This year, it will impact our world history courses as well. So we want to push the kids so that by the time they get to junior year, they're at the state's level, not just the College Board's level.
What is exempt under reading freshmen? So you're exempting out of?
Yes. Last year with the accelerated placement, what we had talked about was if the students met the standard, the next most rigorous level was not having to take the class. This year, if we did that, and again, just as Aaron just asked about, we need to set these kids up for success. We believe in our reading class. The board believes in the reading class. That's why it is a graduation requirement. But this year, for the first time, students, we are recommending if they're at a 450 or higher, they can come out. But if you have a student who perhaps scores a 410, we're going to tell them, we believe you should be in that class.
Allowed to, yeah.
Yes, they are allowed, but we want them to talk to our reading department to really hear about what the course is. Again, parents they can definitely look at that, but nothing lower than a 390 can't.
Right.
Right? Then our graduation requirement that was set by the Board of Education has to be met.
And they received this document here, right?
It
Is
was
that available
in
in the packet.
the email we sent yesterday. The document wasn't, but all these things were in there that they can see. The actual explanations, more of this with their, looking at their scores as well as what the recommendations are, that comes the first week in February to them individually.
Because that's key on the right. You know, once you see this is the score that current freshmen, they have. I mean, that's a big picture for a lot of these parents, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, before we move ahead with the consent agenda, I need to appoint a secretary pro tem, and since Mr. Costick's not here, so Dana, would you mind taking that role? All right, thank you. So, moving ahead with the consent agenda, we have items D1 through D6. Would anyone like these pulled to discuss individually? All right, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items D1 through D6?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can you please open the vote?
Vote is open. The vote is unanimous. Motion passes.
All right, next up, under action items, we have the presentation of invoices from December 22nd, 2023 through January 18th, 2024.
Motion to approve the invoices from December 22nd, 2023 through January 18th, 2024 in the amount of $2,657,070.80 and change as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, do we have any questions? Any questions? All right, nope, hearing none. Can you please open the vote?
Vote is open. Vote is unanimous, motion passes.
All right, the suspense was killing me on that one. All right, moving ahead, we have the treasurer's report for December 2023.
In December, revenues totaled $3.8 million and expenses $10.4 million. All funds cash balance as of the end of December was $63.4 million. Through December, as you can see in the cover memo and the treasurer's report in your packet materials, 49.1% of budgeted operating revenues have been received, and 48.6% of operational spending budget has occurred. Last fiscal year, that was 46.6 and 49.8, just for sake of comparison. So we're trending appropriately right in line. District's cash investments, our blended rate of return was once again held at 5.4%. That mirrored any kind of short-term investments. As the board knows, we've recovered and become stable. In terms of our reserves, we do not have the ample cash flow to necessarily lock in some kind of 3-year or 5-year T-bill or anything quite long. I will say from all of my work with PMA and ISLAF through our investments, the longer-term treasuries are starting to come down. And I think in terms of Fed predictions, in terms of cutting rates, I don't anticipate us to stay this high anymore. We're exercising and acting on everything we can. I have had some preliminary FY25 budget conversations where we might need to look a little more conservatively for this area of the revenue budget for next year. But as long as we anticipate that and plan accordingly, we'll be in good shape. Cash flow variance for December was negative $2.5 million. That's not a surprise. Lower tax activity. And then we did have some pretty late final invoices after the architects were satisfied with the punch lists from last summer's projects. We just had a meeting this week for upcoming summer, so we'll start to see some smaller bills come through Fund 60 for planning for the upcoming summer. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Dubek? I mean, things seem to be, like you said, trending appropriately. Anything on the horizon that has you concerned?
Nope, not at this time. We're in good shape.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any questions, can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented? Do I have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Can you please open the vote?
Voting is open. Vote is unanimous, motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the student activities report for December 2023.
For the month ended December 31st, 2023, the activity fund balance is $2,420,050.10. Revenues of $343,455.47, and expenditures of $277,052.86. There are 5 that were in the negative, all timing instances. Of course, it wouldn't be marching band if we didn't start fundraising in the almost $5,000 negative, so we'll talk to Dr. Johnson about that. No, that's just to get things going. We'll be in good shape there. Girls basketball central was timing, as well as bowling, band, and then East skills. So all those will be back into the positive. Just for the year-end review, Kelly really did a nice job in the building principals. You know, rarely did we have more than three to four monthly, and never, I can't remember any that carried over past 1 month. So the activity directors all did a nice job for the calendar year.
All right, any questions about the student activities report? That skills one, that 8,800, what's going on?
I don't know, I'm guessing that's for an entry fee, Kelly?
No, that's, it's that big fundraiser for the national competition. And so they bought their prize and now they're gonna be running.
Raffle prizes.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. All right, any further questions? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the student activity report as presented?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can you please open the vote?
Voting is open. The vote is unanimous. Motion passes.
All right, next up, under informational items, we have the report of the Lincoln Way Special Education District 843 Governing Board meeting held December 19th, 2023.
Nothing significant changing. They're still working on continuing training and planning for students that are entering and exiting different district programs or 843 programs. So still some maintenance things that they've been addressing that have been a part of just having older buildings, but they're doing them appropriately and not overspending on any of those, getting the appropriate quotes and doing the work so that the kids are safe.
Okay, thank you. FOIA requests?
None at this time.
Nice job.
Thanks.
Building and grounds report?
So Buildings and Grounds, we continue to update that monthly. Next month, we'll bring back and take the first look at some of the cost incurrence of Lockport being at North. Some of those bills we're now being able to true up and help with some of that timing. So we'll bring that back and have a discussion in February in terms of kind of where we're at. Mike has been talking with their business manager. I've been talking with their superintendent. They're certainly going to be there past our original 3-month agreement, and so we'll work on that as we move through. The absolute earliest time they would leave would be spring break. I would anticipate them being there at the close of the school year. From a buildings and grounds perspective, it's gone really, really well. They've moved into the cafeteria. They've moved into the music section now. So just about all areas other than the auto area are being utilized, which is great because that means everything's been clean, it's operational, all the mechanicals are working. It's been a positive experience, I think, for everyone. Second semester, they're successful. Their travel has been so successful that they added 2 minutes to each class period and 1 minute to each passing period, and still are making it out and getting on to I-80 on time at the end of the day. So February, we'll kind of have the first glance of what that cost structure will be. As we've said, we will recoup all of our operational costs from it and provide them an opportunity for their kids to be in person learning. So more to come in February on that.
The only question I had, the natural gas, looks like we're, for the month of December, like super low. It just looked odd to me.
Chuck, any guesses on the
Or
natural
is that
gas?
Is that just timing?
Could be timing.
The natural gas numbers in red?
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, so and Chuck and I actually talked about that too, whether, in terms of using prior year estimates, sometimes the billing cycle, so even, to Dr. Tingley's point about truing up in February, the way that our utility billing cycle happens is sometimes we can get bills in for some of these things prior to the board meeting, sometimes we cannot.
Right.
And so if you ever see anything in red that's listed as an estimate, sometimes that's based on prior year, sometimes that might be based on prior month, and in
Yeah.
natural gas, I would agree with you. It will likely come in for December higher, and you'll see that reflected next month.
Okay. I say generally, you don't use less gas in the winter time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yep. We just didn't have the bill prior to this board meeting posting.
sounds good. District 210 advisory.
The advisory did not meet in December in lieu of the succession planning meeting. And so the next meeting is next Tuesday, actually the 23rd at 6:30 p.m. And we'll begin looking at the student handbook.
All right, thank you. There we have the first reading for the Elementary Transportation Intergovernmental Agreement.
So, as you know, we maintain intergovernmental agreements with several of the area feeders. We have Manhattan, Union, Frankfort, and New Lenox. We try not to get over our skis in terms of entering into 5-year leases when the IGAs are expiring. And as I've presented over the last couple of years, we've done 1-year extensions on our buses because the vehicle industry was so upside down in terms of their supply chain and lead times. That has settled a little bit. I wish I could report that the prices have, which is the next item. But right now, we've got 70 buses coming due, and we have 3 intergovernmentals coming due at the same time. And that's because we had extended those. So that's Manhattan, Union, and Frankfort. I'm working through language with them What we'll bring to the February board meeting would be a recommendation to re-up those. They're typically 5 years in length, and I see no reason to suggest or recommend to you otherwise for Frankfurt and Union, a new 5-year agreement. Manhattan, we're going to recommend a 1-year IGA once again. We extended them 1 year. We'll do that again. And that's because they're opening that new building. They have new bell schedules. That's also going to require some additional bus drivers on our end. Our transportation team did a deep dive. They did a really nice job. Mr. Leone and his team looked at it and are confident we can service Manhattan, but based on those bell schedules, we would like a year to evaluate that for Lincoln Way Transportation. Assuming all goes well, we'll then re-up them a year from now.
But it also provides them a year to determine if this is what best fits their needs.
Absolutely.
If they determine, we want an alternate bell schedule, we want to do this, this, and this, and it's not sustainable for us, then they have the option then to go out to bid and go in a different direction. But we've agreed, we'll try it for a year. By next December, we'll know whether or not it works for us and it works for them, and then we'll move forward.
Okay. Any questions on that?
And,
Right now?
and Union School is 2 buses, so that's not a,
Yeah, you can just-
yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask in light of kind of the 161 shift, if anybody else has had discussions with their own districts about possibly trying to do their own transportation, or do you feel like the 5 years is pretty confident, and what happens if there's a change?
I feel, I don't know if Dr. Tingley's had any different conversations with superintendents. The business manager from Frankfurt reached out to me and said, we're good, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
Please.
They very
Please
much
and thank
want
you.
to. I know New Lenox feels the same way, and I believe Union does too,
Okay.
with Mr. Baldwin, so.
Great, thank you.
All right, then we have the first reading for the school bus lease agreement.
As I mentioned, it's the buses that are coming off. Now, once again, we're at 5 years ago pricing, but it's $11,000 per bus per year. We're now looking at double that. And so right now, we've got a bid out that's due early February. And so we will bring to you a recommendation in February for 57 the big yellow 72 passenger buses for a 5-year lease. My estimates at this time are what was provided to me was in that $22,000-$23,000 range. I think it's going to be high, but it is where the market is. Happy to take any questions if you have them.
That's a 5-year, or no?
Yeah, it's a 5-year
Okay.
lease. Yep.
Are we out of extension possibilities? 'Cause, I mean, we were saving a lot of money on doing that.
Yeah, so, and as I say every year, we look at lease versus buy, we look at new versus used, refurbished, we look at extending. What we've seen, last year it was better in the 1-year extension, now we're hitting 2 years, and for the one, they're coming to the end of a 7.5 year life cycle, and the repairs are really starting to tick up. And the way that we've used them is pretty heavy, so at this time, I believe going out and getting new buses is the right thing to do. Yes, sir.
The only thing that kind of worries me is, like, let's just say, I mean, Manhattan's only at 2 buses, right? Would they need, or no?
It's
This
used.
won't
That's
be the
Union.
full fleet, though.
Okay,
We have timing of other buses coming off in upcoming years, so this wouldn't be the entire
okay.
fleet. Go ahead, Mike.
The
How much
the
is this?
entire rest of the fleet, their lease cycles come due at the end of next year and the following year.
okay.
So
we'd
so
be
we're
about
not
third,
stuck
third,
holding the
third.
bag, so to speak, because I know, and that's a very reasonable question
Yeah.
to say, hold on, we don't want to get over our skis. The rest of the fleet is up over the next 2 years. And so if anything did change in terms of the scope of our operation, we still maintain flexibility on what we do then.
Yeah, okay, yep.
And Rich, to your question, each year we evaluate those buses that are coming off, and we have conversation with the mechanics of what are you seeing, what are you thinking? And next year, so these are the 900s probably going off, and then next year we'll have another series where we'll have to look and decide at that time, would we possibly extend 30 of those and not go back out to bid, so to speak?
Well, and the money we saved, was it the year before, 2 years ago?
We've done that 2 years in a row.
Right, so it was like 400, if I remember, it was like 460,000 each year. Right, so I mean, we're paying for it now, but we saved it.
Correct.
Over 2
That
years.
is absolutely correct. And we've done a good job trying to find efficiencies and reduce the fleet. The 70 that are coming off, and if you heard me say, I'll bring a recommendation for 57. So we are still reducing the fleet as well.
Any further questions? Okay. We have the legislative report,
Nothing to report at this time.
superintendent's district report.
I did include in your update, our ESSER 3 update, kind of on where we're at. You may see in the news the fearing of the fiscal cliff of the ESSER funds. We've talked about this since the very beginning, that we would not utilize those funds in a way that would cause harm, that wouldn't be sustainable. Several districts went out and hired personnel. And with the timing, some of those personnel are nearing tenure. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic. We've been, even though I don't like to always use the word, but transparent in terms of here's what we're spending it on. So just kind of a recap of where we're at as we go into the original ESSER 3 budget and then what we have remaining. So summer and after-school PSAT and SAT prep programs to address the identified learning loss. We will do something this upcoming summer for those sophomores going to be juniors. Before and after-school tutoring to address the academic needs of students. We are currently doing that, and that is ongoing. We have $24,000 left to spend that we will be doing in each building right now, before and after school, primarily after school tutoring. College Board PSAT testing, that's a large dollar amount. Now, that's something that will continue, but we were able to use ESSER funds the last couple of years to pay for those tests. We've got it in the budget, we've got it in the forecast. That's something that we'll bring to the board annually to say we would like approval for this funding, but that's something that will come annually. Apex is our online learning platform for our learning recovery, and also our alternative ed program. Once again, that will be another ongoing cost. That's something that we were allowed to take out of ESSER funds, which freed up monies to do other things during that time. School Links, also something that will be ongoing, but we have it budgeted for. That's our new college and career SEL online platform to help with our college and career social, emotional, and our well-being of students. That's something that's been well received by our counselors and our students who are utilizing School Links. And then Wi-Fi connectivity, that's a small dollar amount. And then the big one, indoor air quality improvements. Those are our HVAC projects, which we are spending the majority of our money on. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, but I did want to just provide that update, as there has been some discussion out there about, oh my gosh, what are districts going to do? We're in good shape, and remember, you have to spend all of it to get all of it. And so that's why, we're looking at ways to make sure we do. We've done, some of our credit recovery in the summer. We've done those boot camp programs with English and math. We've discussed doing that this summer. We don't know how effective that's been, but we certainly are going to do some sort of test prep, and we will get that out to parents to sign up right after the SAT this spring, so there's no confusion of who's getting what, so to speak. Any questions? Just wanted to provide that overview.
Did we make money somehow on the air quality improvement? Well, just the money that we had originally budgeted was $792,026, and now we have $792,277. Did we
To spend? That's a great.
No,
It just looks-
so the way that works is the original ESSER budget, and Dr. Fury does a really good job working with ISB. The way that they wanted to do it, I don't know if it's a state thing, I don't know if it's a federal thing, to say, here was the original ESSER grant. You might have spent all of it, you might have spent some of it. We'd like you to sort of close those books and start a fresh application. That might be a tracking piece on their end, which is fine. So we just had not received the reimbursement yet as of that close for the HVAC. We've already spent the HVAC money, it's just yet to be reimbursed in this fiscal year, and that's already part of our revenue side of the budget. So we're okay. Yep.
Just looked a little funky there for a second.
Just yet to be received.
Got it.
So out of all the items that are on the list, is there anything that you think would likely go away once ESSER funds are spent? And is that something that we need to talk through
So
in the future?
one of the things that will certainly go away would be that summer summer and after school, PSAT, SAT prep. We do provide that. Our teachers do Wednesday morning sessions. We do after-school sessions. If you remember last year, we partnered with Excel Edge. Parents paid $100, then the district covered 200 and some for each student who wanted to take it. So that's not something necessarily that I would recommend we continue to do, as we have other prep plans available. The before and after school, that's such an insignificant amount. That's something I think if we review, $24,000 in our overall budget is really nothing. So if we are seeing value there, I think that's something we could certainly look into. The other ones, as I said, will continue. So of a total of won't carry over into future budgets, we're looking at less than $100,000 that won't carry over. But I think the important aspect was we've accounted for that in our planning. But that's a very good question. Is there something that we should continue? And I guess the two we would look at is the the test prep option, and then the tutoring programs. Those would be the two.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of value in all of these things, and that's why if it's something that's important and kids are taking advantage of it,
Certainly.
and parents feel that there's a need, that
We could work that
if
in the
it's
budget.
something that we can
Yep.
continue, then I'd like to,
Yep.
look into.
Very
Thanks.
good.
All right. Any other district business?
None at this time.
Any correspondence?
Nope.
All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purposes of discussing the employment compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of employees, collective negotiating, and student-related matters. Do we have a second? Do we need to open a vote, or just all signify by saying aye? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, Joe. Will there be any action after?
There will be.
There will be some action after closed session. So, with that, we are adjourned to closed session. All right, so we are back in open session. With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the employment contract for the Director of Transportation as presented in closed session.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can you please open the vote?
We can just do roll call.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Nope, you gotta call
Gotta
it.
call them out real quick. There you go, right on the roll call.
Aye.
Mr. Janik? Aye.
Dr. Berkhold?
Aye.
Dr.
That's okay.
Mr. Lachine? And Mr.
Mr.
Costick?
Costick?
Aye.
Very good.
All right, the
Motion
motion
Unanimous,
passes.
motion passes.
All right, other business, just don't forget to buy your tickets to the Lincoln Way Education Foundation Gala for February 10th. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
we're closed. Thank you, everyone.